Welcome to this explainer on the fundamentals of design thinking. Now, I used to think of design as just, the very last step, making things look pretty right before launch. But as we're going to explore today, it's actually a massive, human-centered, problem-solving superpower. Literally, it can transform everything from the everyday products we use to the giant, complex systems we all live in.
Okay, let's dive into this. At its core, design thinking is a non-linear, iterative process that teams use to understand users, challenge assumptions, redefine problems, and create innovative solutions. It's a bit of a mouthful, right? But basically, this means it isn't just a straight line from point A to point B. It's this incredibly dynamic, ongoing cycle of learning where the human experience sits at the absolute center of every single decision.
So, you might be wondering, what does that actually mean for everyday problems? Because sure, we hear these buzzwords thrown around by massive Silicon Valley tech companies all the time. But the real beauty of this methodology, it isn't just for building the next viral dating app or the sleekest smartphone. It's a foundational toolkit for solving real, complex, everyday challenges. We're talking about those messy, wicked problems in healthcare, education, agriculture, engineering, you name it.
To get us there, here's our roadmap for this explainer. We'll start with what design thinking is, then look at designing the thinking mindset. After that, we'll hit the 5 core stages, move into mapping your key stakeholders, and wrap it all up with the 3 laws of design.
First up, Section 1. What is design thinking?
True. World-changing innovation happens only when desirability, feasibility, and viability all intersect perfectly. And this brilliantly illustrates the difference between traditional problem-solving and design thinking. Think about traditional engineering for a second. It's usually very linear and technology-centered. It asks, hey, how do we build a stronger bridge? But design thinking, it completely flips the script. It's human-centered and research-based. It asks, wait, how do we build a safe, affordable, eco-friendly bridge that works for absolutely everyone? It looks way past just the technical specs and focuses directly on the actual people using the thing.
To really see this in action, just look at GE Healthcare. They were facing a massive problem. Kids were literally terrified of their MRI machines. Now, the traditional tech-centered approach would probably be to just re-engineer the machine, right? Make it scan faster, maybe a little quieter. But using a design thinking approach, they realized the real root of the problem wasn't the machinery at all. It was the child's emotional anxiety. So they totally transformed these scary, sterile, freezing cold medical rooms into adventure-themed environments. Suddenly, the MRI machine is a pirate ship or spaceship. By focusing entirely on human emotions rather than just technical upgrades, they basically eliminated patient anxiety. That is design thinking in the real world.
Moving right along to Section 2, Designing the Thinking Mindset.
Here's the thing. To build incredible products or systems, we actually have to consciously design the thinking behind them first. And honestly, this means pausing our natural human urge to just jump straight into fixing things. When we see a problem, we immediately want to solve it, right? It's human nature. But designing the thinking asks us to hold off on the how do we fix it and instead get deeply, deeply curious. We need to ask, why does this problem even exist in the first place? It takes a lot of open-mindedness, critical reflection, and, maybe the hardest part, a willingness to admit that our initial assumptions might be completely wrong.
A huge part of building that mindset is making absolutely sure you aren't running on empty yourself. Enter the Wheel of Life. This is a crucial self-assessment tool that maps out everything: your education, health, family, finances, personal development, the whole shebang. Because if you aren't balancing these priorities, your wheel gets wobbly and uneven. And what does an uneven wheel lead to? Burnout. Why does this matter for design? Because burnout is the ultimate killer of creativity and innovation. You absolutely cannot design effective, empathetic solutions for other people if your own tank is completely empty.
Building on that self-awareness, we also use a really powerful tool called personal visualization. This is where you mentally project yourself into the future, let's say 5 years from now, and vividly imagine what you want to have achieved. This isn't just some standard goal-setting exercise. It actively builds the deep self-awareness you need to actually develop empathy for others. Because when you truly understand your own motivations, your own fears, and your own goals, you become significantly better at understanding and empathizing with the very people you're trying to design for.
All right, Section 3, the 5 core stages.
Once our mindset is calibrated, we can dive into the actionable framework. Let's move to the 5 core stages and see how this builds into a structured but highly flexible loop. Stage 1 is empathize. This means actually observing and listening to your users without judgment to truly uncover their pain points. Stage 2 is define. You take all those raw observations and frame the actual core root problem. Stage 3 is ideate. This is the fun part.
brainstorming as many wildly creative solutions as possible without shooting anything down. Stage 4 is prototype, building quick, super low-cost models of your best ideas. And finally, stage 5 is test, putting those messy models in front of users to get real feedback and learn. And remember, this loop is iterative. You can always jump back a step if you learn something new.
Let's ground this in a really famous story. Think about Airbnb in its super early days. Their code worked perfectly, the website was completely functional, it was live, yet they were failing. Hard. Why? Because they hadn't actually empathized with their users yet. They were suffering from incredibly low bookings and just assumed, oh, it must be a technical glitch or a marketing problem.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how they actually fixed it. The founders didn't sit behind their desks. They literally went out and visited hosts in person. They empathized. And what they discovered was that hosts were taking terrible, blurry, grainy photos of their apartments. That was the root problem. It was causing a massive lack of customer trust. So they ideated and built a super quick prototype. They just went out, rented a nice camera, and took professional photos for a handful of listings themselves. They tested it, and bookings absolutely skyrocketed. A simple, empathy-driven solution completely saved the company. But it also proves something else. Airbnb didn't just have to design for the people renting the rooms. They had to design for the hosts, the investors, and eventually even city regulators.
Which brings us perfectly to Section 4, mapping your key stakeholders.
Because no design ever exists in a vacuum, you absolutely must identify all the users, internal teams, external groups, and key influencers involved in whatever you're doing. To do this effectively, designers use a power interest matrix. It tells you exactly how to prioritize different voices. For example, if someone has high power and high interest, like, say, a major project sponsor, you need to manage them closely and involve them actively. But if they have low power but high interest, like your everyday end users, you just make sure you keep them highly informed and engaged. This map is crucial because it ensures you don't accidentally build a brilliant solution that gets completely blocked just because you forgot about one important external voice.
Finally, Section 5, the 3 laws of design. So, the crucial point is that no matter what industry you're in, everything is governed by these 3 fundamental laws. First up, empathy. You have to understand the problem deeply from the user's perspective, not your own. Second, collaboration. You have to utilize multidisciplinary teamwork. Engineers need to talk to designers, who need to talk to marketers, who need to talk directly to the end users. And third, experimentation. You absolutely must test quickly. In the design thinking framework, failing during the experimentation phase isn't some huge disaster or setback. Actually, scratch that. It's the exact opposite. It's a highly valuable learning opportunity that points you straight toward the actual right answer.
We have covered a lot of ground today, from the fundamental mindset of a designer all the way to the actionable 5 stages and those 3 laws that govern the whole thing. But look, this shouldn't just exist as some theoretical framework you heard about once. I want to leave you with a real challenge. How can you apply empathy, collaboration, and experimentation to a complex problem in your own life today? Just look around you. Find a process or a system that frustrates you and start redesigning it. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really encourage you to keep questioning, keep iterating, and absolutely keep designing the thinking.